lot of ways. So if we were to pretend that you all were the chorus, or the risers as you see here, the first big terms that I think as a stage performer, if you don't already know, are of course going to be stage right and stage left. You hear that a lot. What does that mean? So as we're performing, that's really how you focus on, or that's really where the terms come from. So as you're performing, that's stage left and that's stage right. And when you're out in the audience, they call that house right and house left. So it's a little bit confusing, but if anybody ever says to you, we're on the stage left side, that means as you're looking out to the audience, you're on the left side. Make sense? Now there's also upstage and downstage. These aren't on the sheets yet. This is just an overall concept. So try to remember these are ones to lock in as you're maybe performing on the stage in the future. Some of you know this stuff, raise your hands. Some of you don't. Okay, that's good. So upstage would be forward on the stage, upstage, and downstage. Like I said, down toward the audience and up toward the back of the stage. Everybody got that concept? Because I don't.
Because they used to build the stages like this.
Right. They used to build the stages at an angle. Is that right? So you would go up and down.
Down toward the audience. Yep.
Makes
Up is
sense?
behind you, down is in front.
Okay. So back to the sheet. In our course, we've developed a lot of our choreography plans. Once we get into our contest performances, we're going to show you an example or two of what that's like at the international level. You really have to be precise in your movements. You'll see that the whole chorus actually moves together. So it's really important to move as a unit and to understand where little marks are on the walls that basically get you to look at the same spot or to move towards the same spot. So we have our 10 o'clock and 2 o'clock fairly simply. In a lot of cases, our arms are all going towards one of those places. Our bodies are actually shifting towards one of those places. And the movements then again look like you're all in sync. And as a unit, it makes a big impact when 100 guys are all making one motion towards one spot on the wall. It's a pretty amazing experience to see. So you have 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock. Little X is a term for everybody is facing and actually looking directly at the director's spot. Sometimes that little X, Darren isn't always there in that spot, but we have moves that are geared toward little X. We also have moves that are geared towards big X, which are out towards center audience, and everybody looks out toward the middle of the audience or faces out toward the middle of the audience or does some move towards the big X. Down the tiles is something you hear very often. That's when you see the entire chorus actually, their faces, or their chests face directly down the line, like you had tiles in front of you on the risers. So as you can see, our risers curve, so your chest would naturally face in towards these little X's and big X's. But if we go down the tiles, that means everybody's chest face directly, 90 degrees perpendicular to the wall.
Like so much slang, it makes no sense where we practice now.
Right.
But 12 years ago, the chorus was practicing in a church that had tiled floor. So everything was square, so down the tiles. Some choruses talk about down the boards and then all that kind of stuff. So that just carries over. So it makes no sense in a carpeted room. So that's why some guys are going down the line. Are there tiles in here somewhere? But that's what's going on, is squaring up square to the audience against those down the tile.
So now how about everybody just stands up for a second? Now these concepts are going to be inside and outside. So let's pretend we're splitting the chorus right down the middle. You would be right in the middle, Paul, and so would you, sir, back there. And everybody else is on either stage left or stage right. So sometimes we like to lean toward the outside. So on your sheet, if you look at the outside, that's actually toward your outside foot, right? So everybody lean toward your outside foot from the center. And now everybody lean toward your inside foot. So that makes sense that this is inside and outside. Now if everybody were to face your partner, if you could find a partner on your row that would be directly across from you, say if you're on the stage left side, you'd be looking for a guy on the stage right side that's in your exact spot. That's called a mirror, or sometimes we've used that term. So a mirror move would basically be looking toward the guy directly across from you. Now we have several other You guys can sit back down. Jim listed it out today as we were sort of talking through what we were going to say today. And there are things like a press. So in traditional barbershop choruses, you start from your knees and you come out and you press forward. In a lot of cases, you'll see this type of movement in an old barbershop chorus. This is the main stronghold of the barbershop movements. So you'll see a lot of that. And Jim,
yeah, so one of the things about just the typical stance, and Darius talked about this with the posture, the posture to do good singing, which is also the good posture for the performance aspect of it as well. When you're standing on those risers, your outside foot, so stage left or stage right, that outside foot is going to be just slightly ahead of the other foot, so your inside foot is just slightly back, and that helps give you all, you can now operate in all different axes, basically. Okay, if you're standing so that everything is, both your feet are right next to each other, you have nowhere to go, right? And any lean comes from the waist. And as with all performance, whether it's this or official, theatrical, or choral or anything, anytime you have a move that comes this way, you've lost all strength. There's no strength in that, and you can't sing well. Okay.
And you don't have balance.
Exactly, no balance. So if your outside foot is just slightly ahead, inside foot is just slightly back, now you have the ability to go in any direction. Okay? And it all comes from the knees. And you'll see that some guys naturally in the chorus are better at that than others. We don't usually have a lot of super deep digs down, but everything that happens from down here. And from the waist down, if these shock absorbers are bending, and if these knees are moving around, then this instrument can stay in line, so the singing stays in a good spot. But it gives you the ability to do, when we're talking about a press or a dig, okay, lots of times we get a dig going on. If it doesn't have the knees in that position, there's nowhere to go except go. Which looks really great for one thing, and boy, is the singing really lined up for good, right? Whereas if you've got that little bit of extra, outside foot's ahead, inside foot is back, then when you dig, you can actually come out this direction, everything can stay in line, and you've got a lot of strength in that move coming that way, as opposed to, all right? One of the things about digs, and again, so much of this is, so many of these guys have been doing this for at least 10 years, if not 15 or 20 or 35, that a lot of this is unconscious. So when it's a basic, okay, everybody press. Well, just to press, as Mike was talking about, is you're going to press toward the audience from the outside, and just the press wouldn't necessarily have a hand, but it would be coming from the knees, all right? This is nice and broad, all right, as it comes out, and if it adds the hand as you dig up, the general rule of thumb is that hand never gets above the shoulder, because you lose the strength of the move, okay? And it's not straight out. Again, there's no strength in that, right? Whereas this seems like it'll never stop. So when it comes straight at an audience, it never gets above your shoulder, and it never fully extends to that point in time, okay? Which is a challenge. You get used to, how long is he going to hold this so that I feel like I never actually stop moving until he gets to the cutoff, and it's like I've never stopped, as opposed to, okay, now I have nowhere to go from here except more of that, right? So that's just the generalized motion when we're talking about moving, pressing, standing. If you have that sort of 4-point stance with your feet like this, outside, inside, or outside, inside, then you have the ability to move in all directions. X, Y, Z, axis, you can go any direction, okay? So, it goes for the full front thing too. Sometimes we'll bring up that inside foot to square it off, but it doesn't stay there very long. All right, then it comes back into direction a little lax. Okay. What else do we have here? Oh, the basic reset. All right, the reset. When a director, assistant director, whoever is talking about, we need a reset right here. A reset is kind of a restating of the body. All right, that when you get to the end of a phrase and you take a breath, it's just kind of a reset of. There's sort of an emphatic reset yourself into a standing position, as opposed to you get to the end of a phrase and go, right? So if you're singing something really dramatic, resetting the body into a spot that just emphasizes that, puts you in a new spot. And it depends on what's going on emotionally, but anytime we're talking about a reset, that's what it is, that there's the body is sort of resetting itself into, I'm going to stand up tall again, right? As opposed to just stand there and sing. Because after a while, the audience goes, all right, we want to keep their attention at all times.
Use of the hands. So Jim brought up the use of the hands. Sometimes when you're in a big group of 100 men, sometimes things can be distracting. Even little movements. Sometimes people are kind of fidgety, and so you'll notice on a big stage that what big choruses really try to do after a long time of rehearsal is really stop some of that fidgety motion for people. So as they're standing there waiting for a song to start, or maybe between the two songs, like in contest, typically we do one slow song and one fast song, an uptune and a ballad. That's typical. In between songs, sometimes you'll see some less polished choruses moving about, and that really causes some distraction. But then the hands, if you can imagine 100 guys doing different things with their hands, there are definite plans for what to do in a lot of cases with our choreography on what you do with your hands at all times. So there are times when you can't use your hands at all, and you have to really sell the emotion of the song with your face and with your body, but without using your hands. And sometimes we really use our hands quite a bit to bring about some great looking moves.
There are times, again, in barbershop, it's not always trying to be perfectly synchronized that everybody's doing exactly the same thing. Sometimes it's carte blanche to be a free-for-all for what it tends to be. But as far as, yeah, it just depends on what the direction is, how much we're going to work on that, to work on selling the same thing. As far as the emotion goes, the ultimate goal, again, as far as when we're talking about the presentation part of it, there's a difference between what happens emotionally with presentation versus straight old, plain old choreography, moves. And we're talking about the choreo, we're talking about the choreography, the moves. The moves end up taking second place. They're in the back seat compared to the emotional impact.
Story.
So, yeah, story, okay, that is much more important. So we would much rather have everybody is selling the story from the heart than we would have no heart and it's perfectly executed. And as far as how we work on that, sometimes we'll give everybody a scenario. Think about this story, think about that story. Sometimes we'll ask everybody in the chorus to, go through this and figure out your own story for this. And it doesn't always have to be the exact same story going on in everybody's head, so long as whatever it is that's going on inside of your heart sells the same emotion, right? So if you're selling a love song, you can't have one guy who just looks like he won the lottery and somebody else is just, otherwise confuses the audience, right? We need to be telling the same emotional story, even if it's not. One of the things is that we tend to, our sound, our singing, presentation moves should never interrupt the sound, should never make the sound worse. And the tendency is that when moves go sideways, sound goes to go the same way. Vowels tend to go when we go like that. So we try to drive things forward rather than driving them sideways. Which leads to actually another thing we need to touch on for how do you perform? How do you get your face involved? Because the face is most important of everything else is the face involved. Okay, you can do all the moves perfectly, but if they look at your face and you're just going, something weird going on there. So the trick is, how do you smile without going? This time is here. Well, that's not the right vowel shape. So how do you keep this but still have the smile? The general idea is from here up, you're going crazy with whatever the emotion is. From here down, it's a dummy. All right, this is doing absolutely what it needs to do. And the incredible thing is that once you buy into that, the eyes can tell the story completely. Which again, I have a chance to see some of the choruses and quartets on here, but the idea of you can smile through your eyes and still have a nice quarters in, be selling the song and telling everything, but here is just alive. Whereas this is great vowels. So that's the trick, is when he's going, smile, I need more happiness, there needs to be more joy or something. The first mistake we always make is to go, and then, well, there goes the singing. So always have to have that good in line, quarters in, nice, tall, everything, nothing interrupts the good production, but the presentation has to come up over the top.
And frankly, Jim is better at it than most everybody around. So, like Darren was saying with the vowel shapes, for us and for a lot of the guys in there, what it takes is a little bit of practice, or a lot of practice in some cases, in front of a mirror. So while you're trying to make these great vowel shapes, you should also work on, what am I actually singing about? Thinking about Silent Night or Colorado Christmas maybe, you've got to realize that there are going to be maybe 1,000 people watching you at a time, and some people who can actually see you from some of those front rows, and it's important to also sell the song up here. So maybe take some time as you're getting ready for the Christmas show, and get yourself in front of them here, and sing the song a little bit, and actually look at your eyes and say, hey, what else is going on here on my face that actually tells the story of the song?
The sense of the performance, as is typical in most theatrical type performances, is you are on in character before the curtain ever opens. And you don't leave that character until after the curtain closes. That you are out there performing nonstop. Even when you're not performing, you're performing. And somebody in the audience is looking at you at every single moment. So that moment you decide to go, you know that somebody's looking at you. Okay? And when you're on a Jumbotron International, that's even worse. But you know, there's that sense of it, and the idea of delivering what the message of the song is before the song even starts, right? So if we're talking about Silent Night, and there will be a nice introduction to Silent Night where it shows up in the show, if we're standing there like this, and the pitch blows and we go, right? That's weird on all fronts, right? So there's that sense of the secondary body, nonverbal communication has to be telling that story. This is a more tender, this is a softer song, so it's not the big ta-da kind of a body, right? It's a little more tenderness to the body. There's joy in the face, but it's not the hallelujah kind of joy in the face. It's that very calm, quiet, as if you're singing this to that infant. It is very, very much like a lullaby. So all that good vowel stuff, all that good lack of tension that's been talked about all these weeks. So here we go, ready. There's light in the eyes, there's joy here. It's one of the great things about this hobby, which goes into why do we do this? Why all this extra presentation stuff? You know, virtually all of us in our normal daily lives, we don't get the opportunity to, you know, put our heart on our sleeve. It's just the world doesn't work that way. I mean, most of us in our daily lives can't, you know, take our hearts out and say, here, take this. All right? But in barbershop, as with other performance, but especially there's a unique aspect of this that we have. We have the opportunity to unzip the chest, take the heart out and say, here it is, give it to the audience. And when we do that, we open this up and say, here's my heart. The audience returns that 1,000-fold. So feel free, all right? Feel free to move a little bit, all right? Shift that weight around. It's very subtle, right? That's a 5-year-old. You're actually singing to the child, but it has that sense of the body is the instrument. The body goes along with the music. Right?
And it actually helps you sing better, I promise you that.
So again, the reason that we do this, this whole performance thing, really, it's all about the audience. It's all about the audience. I've had the fortune in my life to see any number of great professional singers who've sung on Broadway, who've sung operatically, whatever. And when they tend to do a concert, they tend to come out, and there's the piano, and they walk out in their very formal attire, and they stand there in the elbow of the piano, and they stand and they sing. And it's absolutely unbelievable. But that's all it is. It's unbelievable singing. Which is always weird to me because some of these folks are the same ones who will perform in the opera, full garb, you know, singing the incredible dying song aria, lying down, you know, this very dramatic thing. But when they do a performance of a concert, they just come out and stand there and sing. And it is easier to produce the sound more perfectly without doing all this other dancing garbage around it. However, in terms of the overall emotional impact for the audience, it's just a whole extra level. That it takes the audience on a ride that cannot be equaled by just standing there and singing. So that's the reason we do this. It's all about the audience. It's about taking them on a journey that goes farther than just saying, wow, that sounded really nice. We want to get them out of their seats so that they have that moment of saying, oh, I can't tell you how much that meant to me. I can't tell you how much I laughed. I can't tell you how much that, now, how did you know to sing that song? We've had that experience in the chorus and the quartet over all these years, and all barbershops have. Somebody comes up and says, how did you know I needed to hear that song? You did such an incredible thing.